Hello friends, and welcome back to my crafty space. In today's video, I am going to be using the Pieces Story Kit from Ali Edwards to create my second layout for Story Kit Crush, or the second layout that is exclusive to Patreon for Story Kit Crush. This one, I'm actually really excited to do this one. This is all based off of the card here that says, "Hey you, don't force pieces that don't fit." And I really love that sentiment. Now, of course, when we're thinking about pieces that don't fit, the first thing that came to mind for me was a puzzle. When we're doing a puzzle and we're trying to fit pieces in where they don't go, and it's just what a mess all that can be sometimes, right? So it made me think of a puzzle, and I thought, what a cool way to visually represent the story I want to tell by creating a puzzle out of a photo of me and then creating some pieces that don't fit into that puzzle. So that's what we're going to do today. The pieces that I have in front of me, a few of them I'm not going to do anything to them. In fact, these pieces are just going to be those pieces. Like, I'm not going to do anything else to them. I have already typed out my journaling here. These two are just kind of filler cards. So I have the "don't force the pieces that don't fit." And then I also have this card that says you're going to meet people who will change your life forever. Some are there for a few years, a few for a lifetime, and many for what seems like just a flash. But everyone changes you in a way. They are pieces of who you are and who you will be. And that to me also, it doesn't totally relate to the "don't fit the pieces," but it kind of does, right? That some people are only meant to be in our life for a short period of time, and they still have an impact on our life. And so in a way, that's kind of like pieces that don't fit, right? Keeping those people around for longer than they're meant to be in our life is kind of forcing a piece that doesn't fit. Okay, so what I'm going to do is put you on fast forward. I'm going to create the photo portion of this layout, and that's going to be the heavy duty part of what we're going to be working on today. I'm going to show you how I took this, which I've printed the exact same photo twice, and how I'm going to take this and turn it into a puzzle with pieces that don't fit. I'm really excited to show this to you. This page, I don't necessarily, or the treatment that I'm going to do to make this into a puzzle, I don't have a template for it just because I'm going to hand draw my puzzle. So I'll show you how I'm going to hand draw my puzzle, and then hopefully that will give you an idea of how you can recreate something like this. So I have a piece of copy paper here, which is what I'm going to use to create a template for my puzzle, and I may actually print another or cut out another one and trace on it in order to create the pieces that don't fit. And then I've also got a separate piece, and these are both 6x8. So I've got a separate piece that I will adhere the pieces back down onto, which that will make more sense here in a minute. The other thing I will say really quick before I put you on fast forward is that I cut these at 6x8 rather than 6.875 by 8.25, which is what I printed this at. So the first thing I'm going to do here is actually trim down my photo to be 6x8 instead of the bigger size. And then I will turn it into a puzzle. And then I will likely put this entire thing on one of the Citrus Twist plastic, whatever they call these, adhesive, something, attachers, something like that. Anyway, I'm going to put it on one of these so that it still is outside of a page protector and it still will have some dimension, which will be important when we get into the actual layout part. But I felt like the puzzle pieces inside of the, like having punched holes through the pieces might kind of ruin the whole concept. So instead I'm going to trim it down and we'll stick it in a different way. Okay, so let's go ahead, let's dive in. I'll talk you through the process and then we'll slow back down at the end. I'll read the journaling and then we'll call this one done. All right, so let's get started on today's layout. So the first thing I want to mention is that the 3 journaling cards that I have selected to help me tell this story, one of them is a 4x6 and the other 2 are the 3x4s. I'm actually not planning to do anything to those. I'm going to leave them plain and just stick them into the pockets later because I have quite a bit that's going to be done to my photo. So I want the focus to be on the photo rather than too much focus be on the cards. I did print my photos a little too large, so the first thing I did there was cut them down to a true 6x8 size. Part of that is because when you see here a little bit later, I'm going to add an attacher piece to the edge in order to get this into the album. And I thought it would be kind of weird to have the photo portion punched just because this is going to look like a puzzle. So that was a judgment call that I made here after I had already printed my photos. They are the exact same photo, so all I had to do was layer them one on top of the other, stick it in my trimmer, and take off the amount that I needed to take off. I think it was about 1/4 of an inch and a little bit more, or almost an inch off the edges. For the photos themselves, I'm actually going to turn these into a puzzle. So first what I did is I cut 2 pieces of copy paper, just regular copy paper, down to that 6x8 size, and then I drew a grid on top with pencil. The grid is a 2x2 grid, so each of those little squares is 2 inches by 2 inches. Once I had that done on both of the templates there, so you can see one I'm working on and one to the left, I then grabbed one of the puzzle pieces I have here in my house. This one's actually from one of the kids' puzzles. It's a wooden one from Melissa and Doug, and it's got a fairly simple knob on it. So there's not like a lot of complicated grooves or, the way that it looks, because when I go to cut this out, that's going to be a lot easier to work with. So definitely a suggestion I have if you are turning a photo into a puzzle that you're going to fussy cut out is to look for a puzzle piece with a knob on it that is really simple. So I am just working my way around this template here, trying to make sure that that every touching edge, every connecting line has a knob going one way or the other, trying to make it a little bit different and vary where those pieces are poking in and out of. And then once I have everything done there, that one is going to be complete. And I'm going to make a star, a little marking on the page for the pieces I am planning to have different. So the ones that I want to be different from this original template. So you can see I have 3 of them. That's going to make it so when I pull over the second template here, all I have to worry about are those same pieces, or the ones that are in the same spot as the pieces that I have starred. So what I'm going to do is then create the same knob shapes, but do them slightly differently. Some of them will be completely different, where instead of, having the 2 knobs go out, maybe the 2 knobs go in. Some of them are going to be slightly different, like barely different, where instead of the knob being maybe closer to the corner, it's more to the opposite side, or it's more in the middle, so that when I cut those pieces out and go to put them inside of the puzzle, they are not going to fit. And that was my whole concept for this entire layout, was around that idea, right, of not fitting the pieces in. So I've got the 3 done there. I don't need to worry about any of the rest of them. I'm just going to toss out the rest of the pieces from there. So now I need to go ahead and take my template, and I'm going to adhere it onto the back of my photos. This, I do make a really big mistake here, and I don't pay attention to the direction that I put the backing on my photo. So you're going to see here that this one's going to go down. It's going to be totally fine. I actually put it on there upside down, but I'm glad I did, because it turns out even better that it's upside down. I originally was planning for one of my pieces that didn't fit to be more in the center of my shirt, and it ends up being in the center of my face instead. But I actually prefer that because it makes it really blatantly different when you're looking at the final photo. So I'm kind of glad about that. Here's where I realized that, I accidentally adhered the second template upside down from the first. So I needed to rip that back off, put it back on. You can see that it's like all crinkly and gross, but it doesn't matter, because that is going to be on the back side of my photo. Like, the pieces are not going to be functional in the sense of putting a puzzle together. I'm actually going to cut them apart and then reassemble and re-adhere those pieces together down on a foundation piece that is the 6x8 size. So it won't matter what the back of these looks like, and that's why I was totally fine just using the crinkled, kind of sort of ripped background that I had originally made. It's totally fine. So next I am going through the photo here and fussy cutting it out. For this part, I always recommend using a precision scissor, pair of scissors. They are generally precision scissors are generally really small. I want to say like anywhere from 1.5 inches to 2 inches, long. And they have smaller handles and everything. So the whole set of scissors, the pair of scissors is smaller, and it makes it easier to fussy cut around really intricate things like this. So I started off by cutting my photo into 3 columns, so 3 rows. Then I set that to the side and I grabbed my second photo out. And for this one, I'm just going to go ahead and cut out all 3 of those pieces from here because it doesn't necessarily matter. I don't have to be precise on all of the pieces, right? I only have to make sure that the 3 are cut out the right way. The rest of them I can just go ahead and chop off and cut into, and it doesn't matter. So I figured I'd start with this because it's easier, and then I'll move back over to the original photo. I guess what I'll call the original photo. This piece I just wanted to make sure I adhered down because I'm not going to take the backing off before I adhere it down. It's not going to matter. So we're going to cut those 3 out. Then I'm going to go back to the columns and we're going to cut those apart and reassemble them. To make it easier, I decided to just go 1 column at a time and assemble it that way. It just seemed like that way I wouldn't forget where the pieces go, and it'd make sense. So I am going to do all 4 of these. There we go, all 4 of them. The first one's easy because it's in the corner, so I'm just going to add my adhesive onto the back and then stick it up in the upper left-hand corner there. This one goes right next to it, and then you'll notice that the one after that has a star mark on it, which means that there's a piece that will go into that spot that is not going to fit into that spot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add it underneath the photo without adhesive, so it's kind of a template there. And then I will stick the bottom photo down and then pull the one that's going to be different up and off. And then here's where you can see that that's going to be different. I will adhere all of the pieces that are quote unquote different later. I'm actually going to put them on top of foam tape so that it makes it even more apparent that something is there that doesn't belong. So this is the pattern I'm going to follow, right? Just chop the pieces here all apart and then use the starred ones as templates to help me make sure I'm placing everything where it should go and then adhering everything back down. The cool thing about cutting it into a puzzle and then reassembling it is that when you actually see the photo, it's harder to tell on camera. You still can tell, but it's harder to tell on camera that there are lines, like cut lines in between the different pieces of the puzzle. In person, when you're looking at this image, it's really blatant that it is a puzzle. Like you can see all the cut lines, you can see some of like the whiteness of where the 2 pieces meet up, which is just, that's how a puzzle looks. And it's really cool because from far away, it looks like a completed picture, but from up close, you can see all the different pieces, all the different parts in the puzzle itself. So we're almost there on getting this original photo put together. Right there in the middle, so you can see where there's a missing piece, and it's my face. That was the original mistake that I was actually really happy about, right? Because, and here's why, and I'll talk about this a little bit more when we slow back down. But there are different pieces of our life that take us either more time or more awareness to be able to see that don't fit, right? So some things we'll realize right away that that's not something that's going to fit in my life, or that's not something that fits into who I am as a person. And then there are some things that are a little less obvious, but eventually you figure it out. Maybe it's a career choice, or maybe it's a hobby that you've really been trying to develop that's just not fitting, And then there are some pieces that are extremely hard to see that they don't fit. And a lot of times that happens to be with relationships or, just life pathways, that it's harder to tell that those don't fit until we finally realize it, right? So I like that there are pieces on this puzzle that are blatantly different, that you definitely can tell they don't fit, right? Like the one on my face. And then there's a piece in the bottom right-hand corner that you'll see here later that you can barely tell. You might not even be able to tell that it doesn't fit because it looks like it goes there. But when you take the picture and you move it around and you start to see the dimension and you see that, yeah, that piece actually doesn't go there, then it becomes visible, And I think that's actually something that was accidental, but something that really speaks to this story. All right, friends, let's slow back down and we'll read the journaling. All right, friends, that completes my layout for today. I think this one turned out really cool. Pretty exact to what I was hoping it would look like in the end. So over here on this puzzle side, one of the things that I decided to do design-wise, and I probably mentioned this during the video, but I want to point it out right here, is I varied how different the pieces were as I was sketching them. So here at the bottom, this one's really different, and I kind of wish that I would have at least had one go down so you could see better that this piece does not fit here, because it looks as though it does go there. But it's propped up, and I think, really you wouldn't know that doesn't go there. And sometimes I feel like that's a little metaphorical for life, right? Like sometimes the piece really, really, really looks like it goes there until you look at it closely enough and investigate it enough and realize that actually that doesn't really fit. And I think that that's kind of cool. And then there's this one over here that also looks as though it goes here. It's just, there's like little differences here and there that make you notice, that this piece doesn't really go there. And then there's this one that's blatant because it's my face and we're drawn to faces. So of course, that's one of the first things we're going to look at. And then there's a lot of these really big gaps here. So that's a really good indication that that piece does not fit. So I kind of like the varying amounts of visual not fitting, like some things are really obvious that they don't fit for us. Some things are less obvious, and some things we almost can't even see that they don't fit. So anyway, I really like this one. It feels creative and just gets my like philosophy, psychology, all of that kind of juices flowing. And I like that about it. Let's go ahead and read the journaling on this one. So this one, I chose the card that says the challenging piece of the story. For this, I said, in my life, I've done my fair share of trying to force some pieces in that were simply not meant to be. I always wanted to be a gardener, and I tried year after year after year to grow a vibrant veggie garden, yet my allergies caused me to fail each time. I wanted to be a runner with a high level of fitness, but my asthma made that virtually impossible too. And then there was the time I wanted to be a psychologist. I think my high-strung personality and stress anxiety wouldn't have let me survive the field. Life has this funny way of telling us to stop focusing on the pieces that don't fit and look for the pieces that do. Thank goodness for that, because in putting in the right pieces, that's where we can find true happiness. And I could have gone on and on about other pieces of my story that I have tried to force in. Maybe that's relationships, friendships, things that are a bit more painful when they don't fit. And that's there kind of hanging in the balance, right? Like that kind of, when I look at this, I think about those things too. But I feel like in my journaling, I didn't really need to specifically point those out. And I could just focus on some of the smaller things that maybe were less painful to realize that they didn't fit. So the pieces that I'm talking about are like this one right here. obvious. They were very obvious, things that I wanted to be true of me that just simply weren't. And the other pieces that tend to be more painful when they don't fit are the ones that are harder to see. The ones that come out of left field and catch you off guard and make you question everything. And we all have those pieces too that we've tried to force in and eventually learned that they don't actually fit. And we'd be better off putting something in that really does fit into our lives. All right, friends, well, that is my layout for today. I think this one is just so cool, and I hope this inspires you to just think out of the box. And when you're looking at stories and when you're looking at product, to really sometimes let the sentiments guide the way you are visually representing your story. You know, like how this one, the pieces that don't fit made me think puzzle, and the puzzle made me think, wow, this is how I could represent this story. The one that I did earlier in the week with the broken glass and the shards and the pieces that come together to form the whole, you know, that was a visual representation of my story. So how can you take whatever kit it is you're working with this month and think outside the box about how you can create a visual that tells a story in and of itself? All right, friends, well, I am going to be back again on Friday with the next Friday with Friends episode, so definitely check back for that one. And then next week, we're going to be working with the before and after story stamp, which actually isn't really a story stamp. It's just one of the stamps from the Ali Edwards shop from like way back when. Do I have it around? I do. I have it right here, so I can give you a look. Here's what that piece looks like. So you got before and after right now, first this, then this, the story before, the story after. So lots of different sentiments that can help spark lots of different stories. Next week, I'm going to help show you 2 different layouts that I have designed for this stamp specifically, but also it works with lots of other stamp sets too. So don't let the fact of whether or not you have this one dictate watching the video. I think you should definitely come back and watch it because I know you probably have a stamp set in your stash that will work with the layouts I'm going to create. Until then, I hope you guys have a great rest of your week, and I will catch you in the next videos. Bye, friends.